And here we go. A very good morning to you, Grenada, and the rest of the world on this Friday morning. Yaman, we've come to the end of another week. Thank you, Lord, for carrying us through this despite all our challenges. We're breathing. We had brekkie this morning, didn't we? And we got a great day to look forward to. Thanks a lot for joining us for today's edition of Good Day, Grenada. I'm George Grant. And hey, Raptors! Oh man, you folks out there in Toronto, I would imagine, are just celebrating. You should see the videos and the flyers and the posters and what have you that have been making the rounds on social media. And I actually got to watch the game last night. Very interesting game. I think these guys are great. They deserve it. They play it extremely well. There's one thing I would love to have seen. I would love to have seen that victory take place in the presence of the Toronto fans. Huh? Yeah, well, it happened out in California, but one way or another, we won. Pilgrims, let's take a look and see what's cooking there on the rundown this morning. Hello, TF. Hello, Fitzroy. Good morning. The first thing we're going to do is ask you to pay attention. Pay attention to the China-U.S. trade war. Yeah. We're going to share with you an editorial which appeared this week in the Grenada Advocate. Then we have the National Report. And, of course, to wrap things up on this Friday morning, haven't spoken with him, but I imagine that because he's always so loyal, Mr. Pitt will be making a visit. Electronically, he's not going to be coming to sit here, okay? So we'll get to Brian after the National Report this morning. Now, let's get down to brass tacks. In recent times, there has been much talk and speculation about the trade dispute between the United States and China and the impact which such could have on those economies and indeed the companies operating in them. With the cost of import tariffs on Chinese goods to the U.S. rising and vice versa, there is no doubt that the cost of such goods will be passed on, will be passed on to consumers. What remains to be determined is how much they will pay. This will likely be determined by how much of the additional costs companies pass on to the consumers and how much of the cost they will absorb, which will effectively lower their profit margins. There are some who would argue, and foolishly so, that this trade war is not our business. Nothing could be further from the truth. For as the old adage says, if the U.S. sneezes, we catch the cold. So that apart from the obvious impacts, the trade war has the potential to negatively impact the wider world and us too. And we therefore must pay attention to what is going on, especially as efforts are made to transform our regional economies and get them growing once again. We make the point, noting that only recently the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, better known as OECD, indicated that the higher taxes on trade occurring between the United States and China are hurting the world economy. The OECD, in fact, warned that if tensions continue to rise, global gross domestic product is likely to fall by as much as 0.7%. The actions by these two world powers and their failure to come to an amicable solution regarding trade between their nations is also likely to increase the prices of the goods that we purchase. This cannot be good for countries like ours, which spend millions of dollars annually on imports, food in particular. If the figures were to increase even more without a concomitant increase in the quantity of goods, one can only imagine how much more costly the prices of items will be and the pressure that it will put on us consumers. Several Caribbean countries have taken steps to reduce their food import bill by boosting existing or introducing new agriculture programs. However, we will still feel the negative impact of any escalating food prices long before the countries are able to grow all we need to eat. Nevertheless, we must not lose sight of the goal, and every effort must be made to get as many people on board with these programs and as soon as possible. Now, late last month, analysts at the multinational investment bank and financial services company Morgan Stanley also weighed in on the U.S.-China trade dispute, warning of the impact that it can have and cautioning that a full-blown trade war could push the world economy back into recession if the U.S. imposes the 25% tariffs on the higher threshold of imports from China. This would definitely not be good news for countries like ours, which have been struggling over the last 10 or so years to get back on track. This, my friends, reinforces the need for us to carefully watch the development between these two world powers and, where possible, dissuade any further escalation. Our voice may be small, but we are also part of CARICOM, and this is an issue that is no doubt engaging the attention of the other 14 members, and we must make a collective effort to ensure that our voices are heard. That, Pilgrims, is an editorial which appeared in this week's edition of the Grenada Advocate. All right. Time's now moved on to 8 minutes after the hour. Yes, I've already done so, but I'm going to do it again. Say congratulations to the Raptors, Toronto Raptors, on their victory last night. You guys have made a basketball fan out of me, believe it or not. It was an exciting game all the way. May your victory be an example to all that victory and success don't always come overnight. For 24 years, these guys have kept at it. And finally, here you are. Let that be an example to everyone. Man, you should have seen the streets of Toronto last night. Many wondering when next their hockey team, you know Toronto's a big hockey city. In fact, all of Canada is big on hockey. When next will the Maple Leafs bring that level of pride back to the city of Toronto? Now, can you imagine the Windies pulling off an upset in this year's edition of World Cup cricket? A few minutes ago, I was watching, I think the West Indies are out now. But let's see how England responds to the 200 plus that these guys made. It's going to be interesting to see. All right, so let's take 10 minutes after the hour already. Let's take our first little break, and we'll come on back.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try the sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
Boy, yo, they gonna fly with kite now. The wind picking up.
I'm coming. Karim, what you doing?
Fly my kite.
Yeah, but not here. You can't fly kite near power lines, boy.
Why not? The wind good.
Because mommy say kite threads conduct electricity.
Yeah, kite. He's right. If your kite gets stuck in power lines, it can cause power outages, or even worse, it can get shocked.
Come, let's go and fly them in the pasture.
Yeah, that makes sense. Kite threads conduct electricity. Do not fly kites near overhead power lines. This can lead to electric shocks and power outages. If your kite gets stuck in power lines, do not try to retrieve it. Release it and call GRENADA. Always fly kites in open areas. Keep your kites far away from roads. And remember, always clean up after yourself.
GRENADA, energizing our Grenada.
Grenadian General Insurance Company, strength and stability. Grenadian General Insurance Company, tell your friends, tell your family. We cover householders comprehensive, motor and even fire too. Contractors all risk burglary, public liability, professional indemnity, directors liability, and wait, we still have more. Come and find out more what you're waiting for.
We are located on Scott Street, St. George's. For more information, call 440-2434.
Tell everybody.
Pilgrims, you know that I'm pretty darn flexible, all right? And this morning I'm going to exercise that privilege. The reason being, I have noticed that Mr. Brian Pitt is already here. Can you believe it? He's usually early, but not that early. And take a look. See, there he is. Good morning, Mr. Pitt, and how are you, sir?
Good morning, George. I am great. I'm great. It's a lovely day.
It's a lovely day.
Falling. The rain's falling. The plants are smiling. So I know we're going to get something to eat shortly. For those of us who grow what we want to eat, George,
yeah,
we are extremely thankful to Mother Nature.
All right. Indeed. Yesterday Alan and I were talking about the dry season versus rainy season. And did you find, I'm sure you've heard all the talk about how dry a season it's been. Did you find it to be an extremely dry season?
George, I don't know if I would use the word dry. It's been an extremely hot season.
Yeah.
And I tell you why I say that, because you can water plants in the morning, but by midday, the soil is dry and very brittly. Mm-hmm. And the heat has been causing some problems. I think earlier this year, we had to put out a warning for people of a certain age to stay inside. So the heat has been very bad. So
do you interpret that to have anything to do with the global warming and the climate change?
I have a feeling, George, that the sun is getting closer to the earth, and we are feeling that the ray of the sun. I mean that heat. Some days, George, I don't know if you noticed, between 12 and 3, you could hardly breathe.
Yeah, absolutely, even up here. I trust that you've got your yardstick out and you're going to measure and let us know whether or not the sun is, in fact, a little bit closer to the earth.
George, we all come from an indigenous kind of race or tribe, whatever you want to call it, and those people believe in nature. and they look to the sky and can tell you the distance.
Okay, okay. Yes, sir.
We don't
I,
have to get to the 20th century, George, and measure things. We can tell you when the rain is going to fall, you know, how the animals react. We can tell you whether a storm is coming. You know, those people have a way of communicating with nature, you know.
so much for the yardstick theory. Okay, Brian, listen, I don't know whether, I'm sure you've noticed that it seems like this morning I've sort of pushed the GIS aside, the national report, because there's so much. I'm sure you've got stuff up your slate, but there are a couple of things I want to really talk with you about.
And it's a good thing, John, because I don't really want to get into any serious topic this morning. So let's have a conversation about whatever you want to talk about.
Okay, that's great. Let me start by asking you if you watched the Raptors game last night, Brian.
George, and I'm elated. My team won in 6 games, as I predicted. Because I felt it would have been easier for the team to win in Oakland than in Toronto because of the pressure of the Toronto fans. So those Canadian fans could provide some pressure. I mean, to have a whole stadium singing the national anthem is enough pressure. So it would have been easier for them to win in Oakland, which they did last night. And unfortunately, Oakland had some injury problems.
Yeah.
But in sport, injury is all part of the game. Injury could mean that you're not very well prepared.
Yeah. Did you see the crowds on the streets last night?
Oh yes. And the comment this morning is about how sport can unite countries and people. Because I believe there's a conversation taking place in Canada right now about separation. The provinces out west who are producing oil believe that they should be getting more revenue from the oil. So the Conservatives are talking about some form of separation. And this basketball game would have been absolutely important to bring the country together.
Out west talking separation too, so we have another Quebec building up here?
Oh yeah, there's a conservative movement, I mean, in Toronto also, and out west that is talking about maximizing the revenue from the oil. Yeah.
All right, let's stick with the Raptors for just a minute. Lydia here says, "Yay, Raptors!" And I mean, it wasn't just that they won the games; how they won the game last night. I mean, this thing was a nail biter. You agree?
Yes, I agree. But that team has been going through some changes, George. I mean, imagine Toronto over a year ago fired a coach that was coach of the year. They fired a coach that was coach of the year. They traded one of the best basketball players in Raptors history to get Leonard. And they hired an absolutely new coach simply because they couldn't get past LeBron James and Cleveland. And to have things end up the way it did is to say that the decision of the general manager, who is an African guy, was good and right because he has a championship.
That is not to take away anything from the talent of the team members themselves.
No. It's a very talented team and a very diverse team in terms of talent. They have some people on that team who have been rejected by other teams. People on that team who was not even drafted in the NBA draft. So it's a good unit. It's a tight unit, and I believe they're going to be around for a little while.
You know,
they have the best record. They had the best record in the NBA this year. People seem to miss that.
There you go.
They had a better record than Oakland. That's why they had the home court advantage.
You know, while we're all rejoicing, if there's one thing I would love to have seen, and I said this at the top of the program this morning, I would love to have seen them win that game last night right in front of Toronto. So, last night I sat there watching this and I said, okay, win it. But if you don't, then you will do it on Sunday in front of Toronto. Didn't happen. But we're still ecstatic, aren't we?
Yeah, you have to understand, Larry played last night as a man possessed. And I think that happened because he was not under the pressure as he would have been if he was playing in Toronto. It's not easy to play in front of those fans, George. As a team player, I would have preferred to play in the other arena than at home, because I mean, family and friends and everybody telling you all kinds of stuff, and Drake on the sideline and massaging the coach's neck and all that kind of stuff. It's a lot of pressure on the team.
Yeah. Now, are you a hockey fan as well?
No, George, I'm not. It's too cold on the ice.
And, once upon a time when I lived in Toronto, I used to be a big hockey fan. But the Toronto Maple Leafs, they had such a dismal record, somewhat quasi-windies, and it sort of turned me off hockey. And I think that, could you imagine if and when Toronto ever wins a Stanley Cup? I mean, after seeing last night, I don't think anything could surpass that.
Historically, George, Toronto is the kind of city that they have very loyal fans. So even when the Maple Leafs were losing, people were turning up at the games.
Absolutely.
So they deserve this victory, I believe, and let them celebrate.
Yeah, well, I don't think any of us can predict the future, but I believe that what happened last night has been a major boost for the sport of basketball in Toronto. And I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, look at the team that lost last night. They have won the title in the last couple of years.
Well, if they won this year, they would have been a three-peat.
Three-peat.
Yeah, they would have been a three-peat. So I mean, they have been a dynasty. Whether or not that dynasty has come to an end is anybody's guess. There are a lot of commentators that believe that this might be the end of the Oakland dynasty, because they moved. That was the last game at this facility.
Yeah.
So KD is injured, and Thompson is injured. They have a number of players that are free agents, so some of them might be moving on.
I mentioned this morning that I learned a very key lesson last night, and I hope a lot of people watching learned that lesson too. These guys have been at it for 24 years, Brian. 24 years without winning that trophy. I mean, that speaks volumes. What sort of lesson do you hope that would send to those of us who have these great dreams and aspirations and have been waiting for God knows how long?
In sport, 24 years is not a long time. And dynasties come and dynasties go. I mean, especially in today's professional sport where money is the objection. There's no longer any loyalty in sport anymore, I remember I was a Chicago Bulls fan. And in those days, you had players playing for one team for almost their whole career. Mm-hmm. Now you have players moving on and moving along and playing for different teams. So you play for several teams in that 24-year period. Mm-hmm. Look at LeBron James. LeBron James has played for about 4 or 5 teams in the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. So there's no more loyalty to team anymore. A lot of people back players. So you will find that people will back Leonard, or people will back LeBron James, or people will back, they're not back in franchise teams anymore because of the lack of loyalty.
All right, let's shift gears a little bit to another sport. Were you watching a little while ago when the West Indies got bowled out?
Yes, I was, and that's a disappointment.
It's a what?
I was a disappointment. I have a feeling that we put in the wrong team on the field. I am glad that we got rid of Cameron, and I recognize that it would take us a while to settle down to a good operation in West Indies cricket, because I've been following West Indies cricket for a while. I'm a cricket nut. There was one time, George, that a number of us from around the region will assemble in Barbados just to look at a test match. And that was a time when Caribbean people united around cricket. We have lost that enthusiasm because the days of that dynasty has fallen apart. And I think the administration of the game is partially responsible for the falling apart, for the the West Indian fans losing interest in the game because we have not been putting the right team on the field. We have not been hiring the right coaches. We've been penalizing people who object to the wishes of the administration of Mr. Cameron. Let's be frank. The heads of government tried and failed to remove Mr. Cameron as president of West Indies Cricket. So I believe with that change, it will take us a while to settle down. We have a lot of talent. We have a lot of young people. We just got to now condition the mind, because in a lot of these sports, George, talent is becoming less and less important for success. What between the air is important. You know,
The mindset, the mentality.
So I mean, once we get that, make that adjustment, we're going to be competitive, because a lot of teams in the world recognize that a good West Indies team is good for cricket.
I just heard you point to management as one of the issues with the Windies team, and when you said that, I remembered a conversation I had sometime last year with, I think it was the coach of the St. Vincent team, and I brought up the point that management seems to be the issue with the West Indies. No. He was very adamant about that. He said that there's been marked improvement in the management of the West Indies team, and they are excellent. And then, shoots, less than a year later, Mr. Cameron's gone.
George, I have said for many years, and I will repeat it to you now, the problem with West Indies sport is that officials believe they are more important than the athletes. I repeat that. The problem with sport in the Caribbean is that management, coaches, believe they are more important than the players or the athletes.
Okay.
And I mean, that is evident all over the place. I mean, St. Kitts had a sprinter in the Olympics that they removed because he didn't agree with the position of a coach. And with the possible exception of Jamaica and Jamaican athletics, the rest of us in the Caribbean believe that officials are more important than the athletes. If you go to inter-call games, George, and you look at the behavior of some of the officials, you'll recognize what I'm saying. They parade as though the event is theirs and not the athletes. And in spite of their behavior, we have some of the best athletes or best potential in the world. Right? And that is our problem. Let me refer you to a quotation from Vivian Richards. Vivian pointed in his biography to the fact that he was a 40 and 50 run player until he had what's his face? Rudy Webster. Until he worked with Rudy Webster for about a year and worked on the psychology of his game. And he became a 100 and 200 run player. To tell you the importance of somebody helping these kids with the head game. And this is Vivian Richardson, one of the best people to play the game of cricket. So we have to pay attention to our athletes and our players. We have to treat them with kid gloves sometimes, because not all of them are Ivy League students.
True. Notwithstanding the issue with management, there are many who also believe that the team was somewhat ill-disciplined. You know, those who try to brush the management issue aside said, you know, these youngsters today, they just don't have the appreciation for the game that people did when you and I were youngsters. How do you feel about that? Is the discipline of the team, which, by the way, reflects on the management too, eh? Was that an issue?
George, what you're saying amongst the people talking about loyalty to the Caribbean and patriotism, people have labeled some West Indian cricketers as not being patriotic. And they are putting on the table the argument that the players should be patriotic rather than trying to earn a living. Now, how many people talking about patriotism would leave their jobs that provide for their families to go and play for free? The 2020 game has presented a lot of West Indian players with an opportunity to earn a living, George, to buy a house, to send their children to school, to buy a car for their family. We have to find a way to integrate the ability to earn a living with the wantingness to play for your country. And until we can merge and manage those two things, which I believe Mr. Skerritt has been talking about, we're going to have this problem. People need to learn a living, George. I mean, loyalty comes with success. Huh?
Okay.
And in cricket, a good batsman for the team has to be an individual player. If you don't have the discipline, George, to score a century, the team doesn't benefit it.
Yeah, true. Bottom line.
Yeah.
Brian, just let me take a moment here to say howdy to the people, some of the people who are out there with you this morning. T.F. Richards, Fitzroy Adams, John Kennison. John, by the way, is in Cornwall, England. I thought you might be at the game there, John. And Lydia James is also there, and Donna Joseph, Edith Phillip. I want to switch gears just a wee bit. Brian, have you been keeping close tabs on what's going on in Trinidad?
Trinidad. Yes, George, and it's a worrisome
Very
situation.
worrisome. Very.
It's a worrisome situation. And I don't know that the world is taking note of the refugee crisis in Trinidad. I mean, if Trinidad was in the middle of Europe, we'd probably be paying some attention to that there, and we'd have all kinds of funding agencies lining up to assist in this refugee problem that they have. And if we don't pay attention and put some systems in place, it can spill over here.
That's my concern. That's my concern.
We are not that far away, George. And with the plight of refugees, you don't know who is honestly seeking asylum or who is seeking a destination for some other illicit trade.
Yeah.
Or crime for that matter.
Yeah.
If you have one person who is running from one destination to the other to take cover, you can have somebody following him to that destination to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, it's a major concern, and I don't hear CARICOM talking about this issue. I hope they are talking behind closed doors, but CARICOM need a position on this issue. And you see, Venezuela is an interesting place, George, because CARICOM is in between a rock and a hard place. Some of us have committed ourselves to Petrocaribe. Some of us have committed ourselves to Alba. So we find ourselves in between Maduro and the people who are running from Maduro, or the people who are running from what is unfolding in Venezuela. And CARICOM need to take a position on this whole refugee crisis, otherwise we could be in trouble. Because don't forget, we have free movement of people. Huh?
You raised the point that we are in close proximity to Trinidad, and so we've got to keep our eyes open here. I don't know, I would imagine you have not yet seen the editorial which it comes out today in the New Today, and you're going to hear that on the program on Sunday, where the editorial is all about this situation in Trinidad. And they're concerned that it's already here, Brian. I understand that in the south of the island, there's prostitution taking place, Brian.
And it has been now for a little while. Wall Street area, on any given night, you can be solicited.
Wall Street as well?
Yeah. Well, that's where the activities in the south, George. That's where everybody assembles on a Friday or Saturday night. So that's where people can get work.
Where they can get work.
No, it's a problem. It's a serious problem. And George, I had a vested interest in the sugar mill, if you know. But that area now is the drug capital of Grenada.
Yeah, I've
that
heard.
sugar mill roundabout area.
Mm-hmm.
And that was created, George, by a minister of government who gave people permission to squat in that area.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could write a book on this thing, George. Trust me.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, we have And there are a lot of homes in the south of the island, going all the way back to Woodlands area, that are renting accommodation to Venezuelans who are here. No, it's with us, and this is why I say we need a CARICOM position.
All right. The editorial says that this matter has been drawn to the attention of the Royal Grenada Police Force, and I'm just hoping, I'm not holding my breath, but I'm hoping that the RGPF would issue some sort of statement, you know, that, hey, it's something they're on to. And first of all, I don't think, you know, private citizens should be the ones to be bringing this to the attention of the RGPF. One would have thought that, you know, as the people in charge of security, they're on top of this. But yeah, I guess you can't expect them to have a grip on everything. But I would
see within CARICOM. I imagine there's a security detail, and our Prime Minister is the Minister of National Security.
Yeah.
So this should be high on the agenda. It's a major concern. It's a major concern. Another major concern, George, is what's happening in Dominica.
But hold on, look, I'll get to Dominica in a minute. One more thing about this situation, the prostitution situation.
Yeah.
I also understand, Brian, that it seems like prostitution's big business in this place. I understand it's a thriving business out in St. Andrew as well. And the newspaper claims that it has evidence of very big names, politicians, RGPF, who are involved.
George, that is one of the social fallouts from an economy that is not doing well. Whether or not people are earning a living wage from the work that they're doing, and have to turn to other forms of work and employment to make ends meet. George, there are some young women in Grenada who are not working in a sustainable job, who may have children to look after, who cannot provide for food, clothing, and shelter by the jobs that they're doing, and need to find other sources of income. I don't know what we don't understand about this. If an individual cannot earn a living wage from honest work, sustainable employment, they must find other sources of income to make ends meet, George. You can't blame a young lady who might use her body to earn a living because she has a part-time job in one hotel, another part-time job in another restaurant, working as a bartender or waiter. And she has 2 kids. She can't afford an apartment in town to go to those jobs in the south of the island. What do you want her to do? And you have provided something called an Imani program, which might give people $800 for the last 5 or 10 years. They can't get a job. Or if they have, what do you expect some of these people to do? So that is the social fallout, George, of us telling people that the economy is growing by 4 or 5% when the individual cannot see it in their pocket. We are driving them to this thing called prostitution, George. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's the oldest profession in the world. Don't forget that.
That's true. That's true. But you know what I just find very disturbing is, then again, why should they be?
What is it more disturbing, George, is the fact of the diseases.
Hold on, say that again. Brian. Hold on, Brian. It seems. Hold on. Seems like you're having some trouble hearing me. You were just saying something. What did you say was disturbing?
The diseases that can be communicated through sex.
Yeah.
And we don't have any regulation or control on these issues. So that is a major fallout of prostitution also.
Yeah.
But not only that, George, you know, gambling is becoming a very crucial issue in Grenada right now.
How many slots we have in this place?
Blast is blasting away at the place.
Yeah.
People are taking chances because they need money. So when I listen to some politicians talking nonsense about this economic growth that's supposed to be taking place, or even the Esplanade Mall trying to justify raising the rent that people pay as a matter of survival for them. This economy is in a lot of trouble, you know.
Yeah. And let's just keep praying that it sinks in. I hope that it sinks in.
Well, we need a conversation. We need a national conversation about how we're going to address some of these issues. Number one, we have to admit that that's happening. We have to openly admit that these problems exist and how we are going to deal with it. We can't deal with it by the police putting on a sting and arresting some young ladies for trying to earn a living. No, that ain't gonna work. We have to find a way to help a lot of young people to sustainable employment. Otherwise,
How much dependency can you put on the police to, put on a quote sting when you're hearing that the police are involved and the politicians are involved?
Well, you see, the police might be involved because they're not earning a sustainable or a living wage. If you're not paying the police enough so that they too can look after their families and pay rent and all that kind of stuff, they have to find other sources of income.
Yeah.
So what this is not rocket science, George.
Yeah.
You know, it is happening right before our eyes.
And very disturbing. All right, Mr. Pitt. Now that I'm finished with you for the time being anyway, what's up your sleeve this morning, Brian?
George, just one issue. I heard the Integrity Commission, chairman of the Integrity Commission, in a release recently, talking about that the assets of public officers would be made public soon. You heard that?
No, I did not.
A release, I believe, from the Integrity Commission, that the assets of public officers who are listed or with the Integrity Commission would be made public soon. And she spoke about this as being an area of importance in getting to stamp out corruption. And I wondered what happened to the ability of the Integrity Commission to investigate corruption. Because you can have people doing whatever they want to do, they can declare their assets, but if you don't have a proper investigative team to go there and say Tom Jones is involved with A, B, C, and D, then what is the use of making the assets public?
And Brian, a statement that the assets would be made public, for a lot of people, I guess that's reassuring. But you know something, my friend? I have become so cynical. If and when I do see that report, I will ask myself, how accurate is that? Because we've gotten to the point where we have been so often lied to, information's been withheld from us, that there's a high degree of skepticism, Brian, and it's very hard to believe anything that you hear anymore. Do you understand where I'm coming
George,
from?
let me. But let me look at it from a different point. That the majority of honest people who want to serve in some of these public boards or whatever might decide, listen, I'm not serving if I have to declare my assets and my assets will be made public. So the only people that will be available to serve are people who are loyal to the organization or the people who are running the country.
Catch 22.
That is another form of job. Yeah, it's a serious catch 22 situation. So we have to be careful about these things. And if I would want to leave with one thing this morning, George, is this whole idea of a living wage. What is a living wage? And are people able to live from the wage they are earning? There are still people working in St. George's, George, with a wage that is less than the minimum wage. And that is happening because some of the employers who hire these people will probably tell the Ministry of Labor, listen, I am hiring 3 people at less than the minimum wage. If you insist that I have to pay the minimum wage, I will only hire 1. That's economic blackmail.
We're laughing, but we're talking reality here.
That is the reality, George. That is the harsh reality. And it's going to come back to haunt us in the not too distant future.
Thanks for the optimism which you brought to me this morning, sir.
You're welcome, George.
Yeah.
Very welcome.
Brian, I don't know. All I can do is pray for this country. You know, while Toronto rejoices, here we are shuddering under the thought.
Well, let's put it this way. If West Indies win today, and I hope they will, maybe we'll all forget about our ills and celebrate.
You know, you're starting this. Do you know Winty? Did you see Winty on the program here on Wednesday?
No. But I know how passionate he is about his cricket.
Oh man. Are you as passionate as he is?
Yes, I am. But I'm even more passionate about our players being given the opportunity to earn a living while they perform at the highest level. And that living is not going to be provided by Cricket West Indies. It's going to be provided by our players being able to earn a living wherever they want to play cricket in the world. Our administrators, George, must say to the ICC, listen, your schedule must provide for these kids to work elsewhere and don't conflict. Because you know something, the Indian Premier League, which is the biggest league in the world for 2020 cricket, is where a lot of these players earn a living. But I want you to note that while the Indian Premier League is going on, India does not play international cricket.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And they have one of the stronger teams in the world today. And their depth is unbelievable. They have players that can play for any team in the world sitting in a dressing room.
Let me return to something you just said here a minute ago. You were suggesting that you're more passionate about seeing the West Indies players better reimbursed. Okay. What do you say to the older folks who say, improve your performance, and then will come the rewards? Because you seem to be advocating that reward them, and then you may see an improvement in their performance.
No. You see that's where we get, I think, mixed up. If they can earn, okay, let's just say the IPL. If they can, to play in the IPL, you must perform. Otherwise, you won't be drafted.
Okay.
So you have to be a good player that will attract the crowds. Yeah. So some of the best players in the world playing in the IPL. So from that performance, they are being paid very good bucks. Yeah. If you want them to play for the West Indies, it is probably from that performance that you're selecting them in. You can put in some performance criteria for them in the West Indies. So that is nonsense. Don't worry about it. If you ask some of those same older folks, would they leave their jobs to go and volunteer or to go and play some amateur sport somewhere? They'll tell you no. And they probably never had a performance appraisal in their lives, some of those people, because maybe they're promoted because their families own the business.
All right, we're approaching wind down time, Brian. Let me ask you this. Carnival, are you a big fanatic?
Oh yes. All right. We have an opportunity, George.
Do you have a higher level of optimism this year now that we have a new CEO of Spice Mass than you did last year?
Good question. I don't know that Carnival is about the CEO that we appoint. Carnival is about recognizing the stakeholders and whether or not they have the tools that already are available to make Carnival a good event. Let me give you an example. If soca music is important to Carnival, yes? Mm-hmm. And I believe some of the guys are releasing right now, then how expensive is it for these guys to record and put music on the air. And to that end, the equipment that they're using to do this recording is a tax-free. So are we providing for these guys to express their talent that will make Carnival good? And I'm not talking about subvention, George. Or are we providing for the mass players an opportunity for people to play mass? I notice that the Inland Revenue has reminded a lot of people that VAT should be collected for costumes.
That's the release. I was just putting that release up here because I wanted to ask you about that, and I want to hear your comments.
Yeah, well, that speaks for itself. So we, on the one hand, we appointed a CEO, and on the other hand, we're trying to get into the pockets of the people who want to play mass.
Where's the rationale?
Can't work, George. Yep. But I see they're opening Carnival City tonight, so maybe we'll all forget about these ills and listen to some good soca. Have you heard some of the music?
No, sir. And Brian, I've heard very little of the soca music over the last 5 years.
Oh, okay. Well, Beast has a calypso. What's it called? The Country Booming.
Yes, I heard that. I heard that one, Brian. I heard that one. Yes. I did hear that one.
Yeah.
And
there'll be a lot more like that in the not too distant future.
Scholar also has something out there as well.
Yes, it does. Yes. This is going to be a year for calypso, because the subject matter is so vast that the guys don't even have to think when they write. They just have to listen to the news and put music to it.
So you're putting me on guard. Keep my ears open.
Keep your ears wide open, George.
Wide open. Mr. Pitt, sir, I thank you very much for spending a little extra time with me this morning. I do appreciate it.
Thank you, George. Have a good weekend.
You too, sir. Brian Pitt on this Friday morning. Thanks a lot, BP. And folks, we're going to take a little break, and we're going to come on back, wrap it up.
My name is Gudday Grenada. I've been a confectionery maker 16 years now. Well, as a child growing up, my grandmom always make fudge and always make any candies, cakes, as I remember. And I always have an interest in that, It's like when I'm in the kitchen, I'm very happy. If you're making coconut fudge, you just grate the coconut, you squeeze the milk, and then you strain it, and then you add your sugar, and then you put it to boil. And then after, when you reach a certain stage, you get thick, so you got to beat it. Then after, when you beat it, you pour it out, and then wait for a few minutes to get hard, and then you slice it, you cut it, and then after you break it up, and then you package it. Yeah. Providing food fairs 16 years now. I remember when I just go drop it in the fudge. I was a bit younger too, and I met Miss Harris. So I went in and I said, I have a product here, some fudge. I was wondering if y'all would be interested to take some fudge or candies from me. I showed her. She said, "You look very nice, So she said, "I'll try it." So she told me to bring back some another day. So that's when I started. But Miss Harris took it from me, and then they would start. So I had a good relationship with them. Of course, I felt special, at least somebody taking my thing local, and other people can see it, because if I just have it, not much people come. A lot of people comes in, they're foreigners, so it was kind of special, and especially when I go in there, all the workers is very nice to me. If I pass and they say, Kizzy, you bringing anything this week? The thing finished, they always look out for me. That's what I like. The atmosphere is nice in there. My name is Gudday Grenada. I work with Food Fair to provide you with sweet treats.
A natural disaster can change your life in minutes. Preparation is the best protection for your family and business. Prepare now. Create a disaster plan and make sure everyone knows what to do. Store water, non-perishable food, and medication. Remember basic emergency supplies such as batteries and flashlights. Trim overhanging trees. If trees near power lines are unsafe to trim, call GRENADA at 237 for assistance or advice. Install surge protectors to safeguard your electrical devices against outages and intermittent surges. For more information, visit GRENADA.com.
GRENADA, energizing our Grenada.
I'm always on the move. Training, traveling, competing. So it's good to know I have Co-op Bank in the palm of my hand.
Introducing e-banking, one of many customer convenience services from Grenada Cooperative Bank, and there's more to come.
It's swift, simple, and secure.
Welcome home. Grenadian General Insurance Company, strength and stability. Grenadian General Insurance Company. Tell your friends, tell your family. We cover householders comprehensive. Motor and even fire too. Contractors all risk burglary. Public liability. Professional indemnity. Directors liability. And wait, we still have more. Come and find out more what you're waiting for.
We are located on Scott Street, St. George's. For more information, call 440-2434.
Tell everybody.
You know, I have to admit that this has been one of the quietest mornings I've seen on this program, Gudday Grenada. But I imagine that a lot of you are watching the Windies versus England, which is exactly what I'm going to do when I pull the plug here in the next couple of minutes. However, before we go, as always, let us hear a passing word, or a parting word, I should say, from the Holy Scriptures. And I think this one may bring some music to your ears. Isaiah 40, verses 23 and 24. He brings princes to naught and reduces the rulers of this world to nothing. No sooner are they planted, no sooner are they sown, no sooner do they take root in the ground than he blows on them and they wither. And like a whirlwind sweeps them away like chaff. There is hope for us, okay, folks? There is hope. Isaiah 40, 23 and 24. On that note, my dear friends, Georgie Porgy is going to wish you and yours a wonderful weekend filled with God's blessings. Join me on Sunday morning. Another interesting program. What more can I tell you? Just interesting. And again, next week, weekdays, Monday through Friday, for Gudday Grenada. God bless you.